stuck, in that social media maze, scrolling and scrolling and scrolling through stuff you don't even care about.
Yeah, I know that feeling.
You're not alone, right?
Yeah.
And that's exactly what Rueblur, this new platform based out of Detroit, is claiming they're going to solve.
Yeah, and what I think is really interesting about Rueblur is that they're going straight at this, It's not like they're just like, I don't know, like tweak at the edges of how social media works now. They're saying, we're going to change the whole thing.
Yeah, they're calling it a direct-to-user experience.
Mm-hmm.
And, okay, I'll admit, when I first heard that, I was like, okay, here's another buzzword. But help me out here. What does that actually even look like if you were to actually, use it?
So imagine this. Instead of your feed being, all the stuff that an algorithm thinks you want to see or who you follow, it's you choosing to follow your passions. So let's say you're super into cars.
Okay.
On Rueblur, you would follow classic cars, electric vehicles, whatever gets you going.
So it's less about what your friends had for breakfast this morning.
Exactly.
More about curating your own little corner of the internet.
Yeah.
I can see the appeal to that.
And it's not even just about filtering the content, right? Rueblur's whole thing is ditching the algorithm entirely. They're saying users should be totally in control of what they see.
Okay, now see, that's a bold move.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we've all heard the complaints about the algorithm creating these echo chambers and everything, but no algorithm at all.
Yeah.
I got to be honest, I'm a little skeptical. How do they even organize content in a way that's actually useful?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, right? And honestly, even after going through their website and reading interviews with Robert Stringfield, the founder, it's still kind of fuzzy on the specifics. I mean, they're talking about having users define their interests and then maybe chronological feeds within those interests, maybe even some kind of community ranking system.
Community-based ranking. Now that's interesting. It's almost like they want to tap into what everyone else, the wisdom of the crowd.
Yeah.
To kind of do what that algorithm is doing now, but hopefully in a way that's more transparent.
Yeah, exactly.
And they're also saying this whole transparency thing goes into how they're approaching feedback too.
Right.
So forget just hitting the like button. They have this whole intensity concept.
The intensity rating.
Yeah, the intensity rating. That really stood out to me too in the research. It's they took the like button and they were crank it up to 11. It's not just that someone saw it. You know how much they actually, felt about it on a scale of 1 to 5.
And I think that says a lot about just people wanting more out of online interaction. Think about how much more you would get out of feedback if you knew not only that someone liked your idea, but how enthusiastic they were about it.
Totally. It's the difference between a polite nod and a standing ovation.
Definitely, yeah.
And I feel for businesses, for companies, that kind of data is pure gold. Imagine not just knowing people are buying your product, but how much they love it compared to your competitors.
Well, for sure. And that actually ties into what Mark Asley, the marketing guy, was saying, how businesses could benefit from all this. He seems to think this direct to user thing combined with the intensity rating could be a game changer for how companies do targeted advertising.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense.
Yeah.
If Rueblur can actually make good on all these promises, businesses could be reaching their perfect customer way more effectively than ever before. And they could be doing it without having to deal with all those algorithms or pay for those expensive ad campaigns.
For sure, for sure.
So we've been talking about this whole user-centric social media thing, but let's be real for a second. How is Rueblur actually going to make money? I mean, no algorithms, that all sounds great, but even the most perfect platform on paper needs some way to,
Yeah, I got to keep the lights on, right?
So what's their big plan? How are they going to make money?
Well, they're talking about a few different things, actually. It's kind of a mix of stuff we've seen before and then some new ideas. So subscriptions, for example, are on the table.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. I mean, people are getting more and more used to paying for content, like streaming services or even ad-free versions of apps. If the value's there, people are willing to pay.
Exactly. And I think for Rueblur, they're betting that those unique features, that algorithm-free feed, the intensity rating, all that's going to be the value proposition for a lot of people.
Yeah, makes sense.
And then on top of subscriptions, they're also looking at badges.
Badges? Wait, digital stickers? The things you used to collect on, Neopets back in the day?
Well, kind of. Think of it more you're supporting a creator you like or a cause you believe in. You could buy a badge from your favorite band or donate to a charity and get a badge, and then you can display them on your profile.
So it's like merch, but digital merch.
Yeah, basically.
I could see people getting into that for sure. especially if Rueblur can get, like, artists and creators on board early on.
Right, exactly. And it's another potential way for, both Rueblur and the creators themselves to actually make some money from the platform.
Mm-hmm.
They've also mentioned wanting to do live streaming.
Live streaming, huh? I mean, it seems like everything's going that way these days, but isn't that, like, a really tough space to break into? I mean, you've
Yeah.
got Twitch, you've got YouTube.
Oh, absolutely. It's definitely a crowded market. But I think Rueblur is probably thinking they can set themselves apart with those core features. The interest-based following and the intensity rating. Like, imagine watching a live stream where you can, do the usual chat with other people, but you can also, like, use the intensity rating in real time as you're watching.
It could be interesting, for sure. And people definitely seem to get excited about, new ways to use social media. But, I mean, let's be honest, even with all these features, Rueblur's still the new kid on the block,
Mm.
right? So how are they planning on competing with the big guys? The ones that already have, like, millions, billions of users.
It's a classic David and Goliath situation, there's no doubt. And, Stringfield, in one of those interviews, he kept bringing up this idea of the, what was it, the early adopter advantage. Basically, he seems to think that getting in on the ground floor while Rueblur's still finding its footing, that could be a big draw for some people. And, maybe some businesses too.
Right. That's like the classic startup playbook, right? Be the first, be the best, and hopefully everyone else will have to, play catch up.
Exactly. And it makes sense in a way. Think about Facebook or Instagram way back when. The people who saw the potential early on, who built up a following before everyone else got there, they were the ones who ended up, benefiting the most from it.
Yeah.
So it seems like Rueblur's hoping they can recreate some of that, I guess.
Hoping to catch lightning in a bottle twice. But where does that leave people like me, or anyone listening who's just hearing about Rueblur now? Is it already too late to get that so-called early adopter advantage?
Well, that's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And honestly, there's no easy answer.
I know, right? Like, is it too late to get in on this? Part of me is like, come on, I missed out on Facebook, missed out on Instagram when they were starting. This is going to be the same thing. But then
Right.
there's that other part of me that's like,
That little bit of hope, right?
yeah, that remembers how exciting it was to find those platforms before they got, huge, before every other post was an ad or an influencer, before it all just felt like too much.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's kind of what Rueblur's tapping into, isn't it? That feeling of wanting something, I don't know, simpler, more authentic. But can they really pull it off? I mean, can any platform really recapture that? Or are we all just, like, doomed to repeat the same cycle of hype and then disappointment and then boredom?
Honestly, it's really hard to say. I think for me, it really comes down to this. Is Rueblur actually different, like fundamentally different in how it approaches social media? Or is it just a different set of features? Because if it's just about, like, no algorithm here and, adding the intensity rating, that might not be enough to really change anything in the long run.
Yeah, it's like, what's that saying, putting lipstick on a pig?
Exactly.
It might look a little different on the surface, but underneath,
Still a pig.
exactly. So what would it take? What would make Rueblur more than just another, flash in the pan?
Well, I think it goes back to that idea of user control and transparency we were talking about before. Like, it's not enough to just give people more options, right? They have to actually feel like they're in control, like their choices actually matter and that they actually have a say in how this whole thing works.
So it's about more than just the features. It's about, like, a feeling of ownership, like a sense of community. Yeah.
Exactly, yeah. And that's honestly a really hard thing to create, especially right now with the way social media is. It often feels more like like a battlefield than like a community garden.
Right.
But if Rueblur can figure it out, if they can actually make a space where people feel like they're valued and heard and that they actually have some power, then maybe they've actually got a shot.
It's a long shot, for sure. But I think we all kind of root for the underdog, right?
I think so, yeah.
And who knows, maybe Rueblur will be the one to finally, shake things up and remind us what it's like to connect with each other, for real.
Or at the very least, make it fun again.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Fun. I'd almost forgotten about that part.
Yeah.
Well, listeners, sounds like we've got some thinking to do. Is Rueblur the social media revolution we've all been waiting for? Or is it just another platform that's, going to end up buried under the weight of our digital lives? Only one way to find out. Maybe we'll see you on Rueblur.
Yeah, come find us. And in the meantime, keep asking those questions. What do you want from social media? What's missing for you? Because ultimately, it's all of us who decide what the future of this is going to be.
Well said. That's all the time we have for today's deep dive into Rueblur. Until next time, happy scrolling and hopefully happy connecting.